way. She's a cook, she's a chauffeur, she's a worker bee. First in the door and last to leave. Girl talk, girl talk. What's better than girl talk? Girl talk, girl talk. What's better than girl talk?
Welcome to Girl Talk. I'm Regina Ayers, and for those of you who are new to Girl Talk showcases women in the Rogue Valley who are making a difference in their communities. It is a lively discussion of the opportunities, challenges, and successes of women in their daily lives. Today we're talking about sheltering people in the Rogue Valley. My first guest is Cass Sinclair. Welcome, Cass.
Thank you, Regina.
She's the director of the Ashland Winter Shelter, and that is sponsored by Options for Homeless Residents of Ashland, or the acronym that a lot of people call it is ORA. Now, the Winter Shelter is a seasonal shelter, which opens in November and closes in March, and it will be closing in a couple of weeks here. So, Cass, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got to be the director of the Winter Shelter here in Ashland?
Well, I was working for Jackson County Public Health, responsible for HIV prevention in Jackson County, working under a 5-year grant there, and also coordinating the syringe exchange program and working with probably about 100 people a week that were experiencing homelessness as well as substance use disorder. And so when I saw the job, it's really a passion for me, and I applied and I got the job.
Great, great. So you started, one thing that's good about our interview is I have some history with ORA and actually with the shelter. I volunteered, over the last few years, occasionally. I'm not saying I'm down there every night, but so I think you started working like the day that the shelter opened up this year.
I started, I believe it was October 28th, and the shelter opened November 4th.
Wow, that wasn't too much time to hit the ground, but you did hit the ground running. You had to.
I did.
Absolutely.
And we opened, and it's been amazing.
Well, why don't you tell the audience how the shelter operates? What is it all about?
So the shelters in Ashland, as you know, really started, I think 8 or 9 years ago with our citizens, people like yourself, Heidi Parker, other people started sheltering people 1 or 2 days a week in faith-based organizations. And then it progressed up to 4 nights a week. So this year, Options for Helping Residents of Ashland, which we have kind of changed to the residents, we are facilitating the grant as well as working with our 300 plus volunteers, our 6 faith-based organizations. So we have a really unique model that I think may not work in other places, but it works really amazingly well here. So we're open 7 nights a week. Each night of the week we have a faith-based organization that comes in and brings food and volunteers into our kitchen. So they prepare the food at home or in their kitchens and then bring it to us to serve our guests. And we also have 2 volunteer hosts that spend the night and come in and spend the night with our guests. So we have max capacity of 45 people. We're a 1-site shelter this year, so everybody sleeps in one big great room. As you've seen, I know you've been overnight hosts. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
As well as volunteering in the Resource Center. So that's how we're structured. So I'm there every night. I'm the staff person and really overseeing everything. Like I said, we have the 300 plus volunteers, so we're managing food and the building and the guests and everything. And then we have a shelter navigator that comes in the morning.
Well, define that.
So Lisa Smith is our shelter navigator. She's amazing. She comes in every morning and meets with guests at about 6:30 in the morning. And then makes appointments with them and meets them back at our Community Resource Center. So our Resource Center is open from 9 to 2. And just to kind of back up a little bit, so we're the first shelter that Jackson County has allowed into the county. So this is our first year. We have a unique permit, which is the reason why we're open from November 4th through March 31st. We're permitted for those 4 months.
That was a bit of a challenge to get that too.
And so also the unique aspect of that is we can't have people walking in and out to our shelter because there's no sidewalk easement for them. So we agreed to bus people in and out. So our shelter, we bus people in from Ashland City, our guests, and they come into the shelter at 7:30 at night, where they have a meal and rest and sleep, and then we have to have them bussed out by 7:30 in the morning. So by me being there at night to kind of work with guests, seeing where they're at, and Lisa being there in the morning to meet with people, I can kind of communicate to her, she can communicate to me, and then we do have the benefit of having the resource center. So even though we can't see the guests during the day at the shelter because we can't have them on the property, we can meet them back at the resource center. So the things that we work with our guests on are, just the basic things, like if you don't have a driver's license or your social security card or your birth certificate, you can't apply for a job. We have an iMatch job system where we have people can work with our navigators to get a job, to build a resume, and also to get on the housing list, to get insurance, and those are the kinds of things that we're working with our guests on.
So what are some of the benefits from rotating to 7 different churches to being at one site?
So I think, given my relationship, getting to know all the amazing volunteers and the faith-based organizations, there was maybe a little hesitancy, but I think it's worked out so well this year to offer consistency to our guests, and the volunteers have all learned all about the idiosyncrasies of our kitchen and everything. So it's worked out very well for the guests. And
so one thing that I noticed that I see as a real benefit is that they're able to keep their belongings at the one site in their own bin. Because as you can observe people walking around town that don't have that, it's a challenge.
It is, and if people are looking for jobs and they're schlepping around a backpack, it makes it difficult. So that's been new this year. So as they come in, they can check their things into the bin room. We have a volunteer person there that monitors, and then we lock the door so they know their things are secure. So each guest coming in has the opportunity. Some guests will come in and they'll move out to other housing places, or they'll move from the community, or whatever the reasons are that people move along, whether they're housed or find a different situation.
So how many beds do you have there?
We have 45 beds, the capacity for 45 beds, and then we have 4 total host bunks. So the hosts that come in and spend the night, they have a separate bunk that's designated to hosts. And then sometimes we'll have trainee hosts that come in and we'll kind of do an internship, if you will, or watch how it's done until they feel more comfortable to host on their own.
So a person is assigned a bed, so that is their bed as long as they are in the shelter.
Yes.
So I see that as a plus too.
It is, and they really feel at home, and it's just, we've had so much feedback. Every night, I'm there every night, and I've been there every night since we opened, pretty much, gladly. They're just really experiencing that security of having a place where it just kind of allows them to not have to worry about where they're sleeping, so that they can kind of find out what's percolating to the top. What do they want to work on? We're there, we're a low barrier shelter.
Yes.
There to meet them.
You want to define that for us?
Sure. So a low barrier shelter model really is about meeting people where they're at. So it's a housing first model. People, whether or not they're experiencing mental health disorders, substance use disorders, can come into the shelter. Oftentimes they'll come in, they might be under the influence. Of course, they're not allowed to use once they're on the property. But the focus really becomes about getting past that, working with people where we're less punitive with them. So if I'm more punitive with somebody and I may have to exit them out of the shelter for something, then I'm losing that opportunity to work with them on the things that I can to get them moving along, getting them connected to services and housing, really. I mean, all the data shows that the more we can get people housed,
Right.
really at the base level, the more they can start working on security and the things that they need to do. So that's that low barrier housing first model, is to move less from a punitive model and more towards working with people where they're at. And some guests may choose not to. Some people are chronically unhoused, chronically homeless, and may not be wanting to work on anything other than coming in and eating and sleeping, but that's not a barrier. They're not excluded from being at the shelter. And then others move really rapidly.
Yeah.
You know, some people are newly unhoused and they may just need to do a few things to get off the ground.
Yeah. I think we've got a picture of the shelter. Can we bring that up, since we're talking about people having their dedicated space? Yeah, so this was an article in the Tidings, and the headline is, "This Isn't Going Away." And there's a picture of 3 cats sleeping on a bed, and I actually know those 3 cats. So, but you can get a sense of what the great room, as you're calling it, and the double bunk beds are. So there's 45 people in there.
Yes.
And so how do people get in there? What is the screening process?
So we use a risk screening that's used through HUD, and basically, really, the focus is to people take the risk screening, and then they are rated on their risks. So it's not necessarily a first come, first serve basis, right? Although we were able in the beginning of our season, because we were new, to really get a lot of people in.
Accommodate most people that applied.
But if we have somebody high risk, so it really rates their risk. And then
Their health or their mental
health, trauma, whether or not they were in foster care, or, you know, there's all these different scorings, and really it's around like adverse childhood events and things that make them more at risk. And so then the premise is to get them higher on the list and get them into the shelter faster than if somebody who maybe had less risk.
Right. So it's a co-ed shelter.
Yes.
They're men and women.
Yes.
They're dogs and cats.
Yes.
Are there any of the creatures that have been coming through there yet?
Well, I haven't had any rabbits or, you know, no rodents either, so we're grateful for that. But actually, the cats and the dogs do get along. So,
They do.
yes,
Amazingly, they do.
They are leashed,
Yeah.
but they cruise around the shelter with their owners. And
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. Well, what are some of the behaviors that might get a person temporarily or permanently, 86'd from the shelter?
So safety is our main concern. Our main concern for our guests, for our volunteers, for staff. I mean, we just have to maintain safety. And we do have a fire watch person, by the way, who's up all night and doing 15-minute checks on the building and all the rooms, just for fire prevention as well and safety. So if somebody were fighting in the shelter, physical violence is not accepted. If somebody were being so loud and the host was asking them to leave, we really empower our hosts to know, since they're the ones that are there at night. If it's just not looking like they're going to be able to quiet or calm a situation, or it's feeling unsafe, then we encourage them to call 911. So somebody might be 86'd and exited for physical violence and not let back in. Some people might be experiencing some pretty severe alcohol abuse disorder, come into the shelter, be really out of hand, and I may choose, like I have done, to call Ashland Police Department, who actually will come and get that person into detox, not necessarily put them under arrest or trespass them, but really get them help
That they
that
need,
way, yeah.
right. What was I going to say? Well, so let's say a person was disruptive one evening and you had them leave. Would they meet with Lisa perhaps the next
Yes.
day down at the ACRC
Yeah,
so they
so-
could discuss what happened?
Yes, and so that's also part of working with people that have been marginalized, that may not have all of the best tools when it comes to participating in group functions or
Right.
something like that. So they could meet with Lisa and be on a behavior plan, if you
Right.
will.
Oh,
Like
okay.
you really need to meet with her. And then Lisa can meet with me and we can kind of tailor, which we've done with people. We have had guests that have been out for an entire month, and then Lisa can work with them, and they've been able to come back in, and it's been great actually ever since. So,
Well, you're coming up to the end of the winter shelter program. 2 weeks, right, left?
yes.
And then what will you be doing over the summer months to get ready for next year?
So I've actually been promoted to the senior director of program services. So I'll be overseeing the shelter, our resource center, and we also own and work with volunteers with a laundry shower trailer. So we'll be looking to expand those hours with the laundry shower trailer and our community partners and faith-based organizations and volunteers. And I'll have staff in each of those, but I'll also be working on all the things we've learned this year. So this was our first year,
Yeah.
as you know, this hybrid, and so we have lots of great takeaways and lots of things to put into place around training volunteers and what we might do differently next year with regards to people who want to really pack rat their stuff or whatever it is.
Yeah.
We'll be working on that. And then of course resource development. We always need resources to fund our programs and services, and so we'll be working on all that.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about, you mentioned a grant before, you received a grant in order to do the one site. So what is the, who did you get that grant from anyway?
So we got the grant from Access,
Okay.
and then we also got a grant from the city of Ashland, and we've gotten donations from people, and so we're always looking for grants, and we have a part-time person who's looking for grants for us.
Who
And
writes grants for Aura? Yeah, yeah. I was actually on the board of Aura for several years, and I was the volunteer coordinator at the original Ashland Community Resource Center. So I have, like I said, I have some experience with how it has really evolved. And where's your current location for the ACRC?
So we're located at 611 Siskiyou Boulevard, Suite 4. So if you're standing looking at the front of Safeway, we're to the right. We're open from 9 to 2, Monday through Friday.
Next to the tattoo parlor.
Next behind the tattoo parlor in front of Colpia Counseling. So strategically close to town. And
Yes, absolutely. So, so the model there is people have to have an appointment in order to come and meet with one of the navigators, correct?
yes, and it's kind of moved more towards that this year. And I think it has helped people, so they can come in, make an appointment. Sometimes they might be able to get a same-day appointment, but it's helped with, we have a very small waiting room in the front, as you know, and so it's helped people to kind of move through more effectively.
Yeah, I come down and people can use, one of the benefits is that people use that address as their mailing address. And because unhoused people don't have addresses.
And if they don't have addresses, sometimes they can't get services.
That's right, yeah. And so one of my volunteer jobs down there is to, the vast amount of mail that comes in there. And
Thank you.
yes, yes, it's like cleaning the bathroom. It's like you have this big pile of mail, and after you've been there for an hour or so, the pile's smaller.
That nice beginning to end.
Yeah, no, it's a good job. I like that job. So, let's see, what else did I want? Oh, I know, I wanted to ask about partnering with other, in the second segment, we're going to be talking to the person that manages the Kelley shelter in Medford. And is there any collaboration between Rogue Retreat, who manages the Kelley shelter, and Aura, or between the Kelley shelter and the Ashland Winter Shelter? do you guys communicate and talk about how to improve things?
Actually, we just had a board member, a staff person, myself, just had a site tour of Kelley Shelter and Rogue Retreat.
Great.
And we had a personal tour for 2 hours with Chad, the executive director of Rogue Retreat. And he's super open to collaboration and sharing information. We had lots of questions about how he's done that, you know, so they just have a much bigger budget and staff and just kind of like going into what does it look like to have a year-round shelter.
Right.
So he was really open to just sharing information with us. It was great.
Do you think we need a year-round shelter here in Ashland?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I speak for myself. I don't
Right.
speak for. I mean, that's like
That's
kind of
above your pay grade.
That's above my pay grade. You need to talk to our executive director and the board about that.
We've had her on before, Michelle.
amazing.
She's fairly new too to
Yes,
ORA.
she
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Well, I know that there's some property out on Washington Street that has some potential. Yeah, for a larger facility, year-round shelter. It's a big job, though.
It
It's a
is.
big
It takes
job.
a lot of money, and so I know that the board and the executive director are moving into strategic planning for the next season. So it'll be interesting to see what we can make happen. The city's really open. There's a lot of room for growth in a lot of different areas. So
Yeah, well, the city of Ashland has been a really good partner.
they have.
Since I've been involved for quite a few years, I've seen that relationship have some waves in it, kind of up and down, but it's a high point now. I think it's a really good relationship with the city, and so I think they like the one site. I think that's a positive, and so they've been very generous over the years,
Yes.
and that's really good. Now you mentioned access, so. What is access role? They have all of Jackson County, maybe Josephine County, I'm not sure. They're the person that, not the person, but the organization that gets the grants from the federal government.
Right.
And then they decide how to disperse that money. You make application to them for a pool of
Yes.
money
Yes.
that the feds have given them to administer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's how we got that. Yeah.
The money for the on-site. Yeah. How much did you guys get to get this rolling?
I want to say $150,000,
Oh,
but
okay.
don't quote me on
Okay,
that.
I
do have to say I did hit the floor running. I've been really focused on the shelter piece.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. So, so I could bring up the coronavirus and ask.
Please do.
Ask, well, first of all, let's if people are interesting, I'll take that back. We're not talking about the coronavirus.
Well, I would like to say that, and that of course is a really big concern.
It
We have
is a big
people in there.
concern,
And what
yeah.
we're doing is we're working very close with Jackson County Public Health, as well as following CDC recommendations. We have the portable hand washing stations outside of the shelter. I was just there disinfecting all surfaces, which I do every night, and after guests leave the next day. But you do get into a unique situation. We all have to protect each other, and having all the volunteers, we're encouraging them. If this is, protect yourself, protect your family. If you need to stay home, do that.
Yeah.
And then, there's a lot we don't know about what that looks like with having everybody housed. As it gets warmer, would it be safer for people to be outside?
Maybe we don't
So
know.
those are things that we'll talk more about on Monday with the executive director. We just had a big meeting with the state and the county and the city, and so.
Yeah. Well, if somebody wanted to be a volunteer, how do they go about doing that? I know it's a little late for this season, but you're going to be having a new season coming up.
Yeah.
Next.
So they could call my shelter number at 541-708-6434.
Good.
Leave a message. I'll call them back. They can email me at shelterdirector@helpingashland.org. They can come into the resource center. They can go to our website, Options for Helping Residents of Ashland, and we have a link. There's
Yeah.
many different ways. People can volunteer at the shower trailer, at the resource center. and at the shelter.
Yeah, there's lots of different positions, yeah. And it's fairly easy to sign up, and I've used that what is it called?
Tiny URL.
Yeah, tiny URL to sign up, yeah. So it's pretty user-friendly. And you'll be doing a training, I'm sure, next fall before
Yes,
the
we
winter
will.
shelter
Yes,
starts.
we will.
I've
People,
attended those.
there's so many different ways to volunteer. They can volunteer with food, or coming in to serve in the kitchen, or even just coming in for 2 hours in the evening when the shelter opens and just holding space for people. We call those volunteers listeners, and they just hold space and kind of cruise around the shelter and talk with people who's, sometimes people just need an ear. A lot of times they do.
They do. Well, I think we're coming to the close of our interview today, but I really want to thank you for the service that you're providing the community, and it's certainly needed, and we need more of it, as in a year-round, 7-day-a-week shelter. So I know that's a big job, but it's something that we should all strive for.
It really does make a difference in people's lives.
Right, it does.
It means something to them. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, Cass. I really appreciate you
Thanks,
coming.
Regina.
Yeah. Well, that's about all the time we have today on Girl Talk. And I would like to, again, thank Cass for being on the show today. She is the director of the Ashland Winter Shelter, and she's taken on some new responsibilities for the coming year. And I'd like to thank my volunteer crew. We're all volunteer down here at Rogue Valley TV. Wanda, my director, John, Letts, Gary, David, and Sophia. And Girl Talk can be seen on Rogue Valley TV, Channel 15 with Ashland Home Net, or Channel 182 with Spectrum at 3 p.m. on Saturdays and 6:30 on Thursdays, or on demand online at rvtv.sou.edu. Now, recently I have established a YouTube channel, and so you can go to that address. It's YouTube Regina Ayers, and Girl Talk can be found on that station, and all of the Girl Talk shows that are on Rogue Valley TV, as well as a Getaway Girl. I have another show. It's a travel show called Getaway Girl, so you can see those shows on there. And I have a song list, which includes the songs that I have written and recorded, like the Girl Talk theme that you heard at the beginning of the show and that we'll close the show with today. I really enjoy writing the lyrics now more than I enjoy the singing, so it's one of my hobbies. So anyway, we hope that you learned something new today, and will join us again soon. So bye from Girl Talk.
Girl talk, what's better than girl talk? Girl talk, what's better than girl talk? Chat with the ladies about their day, the ups and downs along the way. She's a cook, she's a chauffeur, she's a worker bee. First in the door and last to leave. Makes way less than the guy next door. She knows